everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. So today in our unit on economic and personal finance, we're in unit 7. We're talking about credit and debt. And today we're going to talk about something that you might not think about fitting into our whole unit here, talking about managing debt, and that's insurance. And the different types of insurance and the necessity for insurance to prevent cataclysmic, unexpected debt. Let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about insurance. There's 5 specific types of insurance that we're going to be talking about today. And these are things that you've probably never thought about. But as you turn into an adult and you get out into the real world, these are things that you need. Now, insurance is kind of weird because you're kind of paying for what if in these premiums. And it feels a lot of times that you're spending money on something that is not giving you any value at that time in your life. However, without insurance, you are extremely vulnerable to losing everything you've ever worked for financially. Houses, cars, you can lose it all if you don't have insurance, because these wild fees and debt that you can incur without having insurance is pretty catastrophic. Let's just walk through them because they all kind of focus on a specific different part of life. So, pun intended here, I guess. That's a good segue. Let's start with life insurance. All right, so most likely you've never thought about this, and you're probably even like, what is life insurance? It's insurance on my life? Is this like a respawn or a self-revive type thing? No, it's not. So life insurance at first, so you gotta bear with me here, especially if you're still high school age, this might seem like the most useless thing ever. And honestly, if you are living by yourself, you have nobody depending on you, life insurance can probably hold off for you for a few years. Life insurance is if something happens to you, all right? Some wildly unforeseen catastrophic situation happens and you pass away. That's when life insurance kicks in. So you've been paying premiums, you pass away, you die. I know I got dark here real early today, didn't I? If you pass away, life insurance that pays out a good hunk of money to the people that are dependent on you. So if you have a family, you have kids, and especially, let's use this example here, and these fictional people I grabbed off the internet. Say this is a husband and wife, they're both working, they have 2 kids they're paying for, they have all these bills, and some unforeseen event happens with an accident, somebody gets sick, one of these adults passes away. Well, they have made their entire budget on the idea of having 2 incomes. So life insurance, whoever passed away, if they had life insurance, will pay out one large lump sum, and that will help pay off all the debt that person had, so that the rest of their family can move on and not be held up with crushing debt, since there's only one person working now in a 2-income household. So life insurance is necessary once you start having people that depend on you, because it pays them. Now, there are 2 very different types of life insurance. There's term life and there's whole life. Whole life insurance is probably what you were expecting life insurance to be, which is you pay into it, and whenever you die, whoever depends on you gets a lump sum payout, regardless of when that is, and it's usually up to like age 120. So you pay on it every month, you die, whoever it is gets your money. That is whole life insurance. Term life, and you may have heard that, term life is for a certain term of time. And you're like, what? So a lot of times, if you're 80, 90 years old and you've been working your whole life and retired and all that, you probably at that point don't have a ton of debt if you've been smart with your money. So getting a huge lump sum at that point might not be beneficial, especially if you've been on a fixed income, those rates are higher. Term life is good in middle age. You get married, you start having kids. Term life is usually more affordable and more accessible to a lot of people. And this is like over 30 years. So if you have a mortgage you're paying on for 30 years, you have car payments, you have student loans, you have all these debts that you're paying off. Term life insurance is life insurance that only lasts a certain amount of time, and it's usually cheaper. So if you pass away while you are paying off those debts, term life insurance can kick in and pay off those debts for you. Whereas once you turn 50, 60 years old and your house is paid off, all cars paid off, and hopefully all your student loans are paid off then, there's no reason to have life insurance because you don't have other debt to pay off of. You can have either one, but term life is literally for a certain term. Whole life is for your whole life. So the benefits of life insurance, not only is it the financial aspect of it, a huge part of this is a peace of mind. If you've worked your whole life and you have a family, people that rely on you, you're always one catastrophic accident away from not being able to provide for them anymore if something happens to you. If you have life insurance, it really does give you a peace of mind and helps your life, which hopefully lasts until you're 300 years old, easier to live with purely because you have a plan for that. So it's very much a peace of mind, financial security, and it also, especially if they are reliant on your income, if something happens to you and you die, then they get the money. There's a million movies about this of like the wife taking out a big insurance policy on the husband, and that doesn't really happen very often in real life. So don't worry about that. So what are the benefits of life insurance? So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. All right, so the next one you do need, and you need it immediately. Most likely, you're probably connected to your parents' health insurance at this point. If you don't have health insurance in any way, you really need it. So, health insurance is very different than life insurance. Life insurance, if you die, they pay out. Health insurance is paying for medical bills. Now, health insurance is really expensive, all right? And when you start looking at how much health insurance is, the amount that it costs to cover you to go to the doctor because you're having to pay these premiums, and then you still have to pay some at the doctor, it's going to seem absolutely bonkers how expensive it is to have health insurance. This is why a lot of people don't have it. However, if you don't have health insurance and you get in a car accident or something, the bills you will get from the hospital will seem comical, and it will absolutely wipe you out financially. This is not rare. Unlike, crazy, family taking out a life insurance policy and then like pushing you off a cliff and like all like movie stuff, like that doesn't really happen. What does happen is people getting crushed with medical bills because they don't have health insurance. So much so that from 2009 to 2020, and that was when this source came out, so it's the same thing, it's the largest source of American debt. The largest source of American debt. How much so? I want to put two things on the screen here to show you the expenses with health insurance. Health insurance is not something that you can ignore, all right? So on the left, these are the rates you have to pay on average every month for health insurance. Basically, if you get hurt, you go to the hospital. So let's go to the bottom. All plan types, single coverage. For a single person, it's $490 a month for health insurance. Now, if you have an employer, a lot of employers offer this as a benefit. All right. Now, if you're self-employed, you're going to have to pay for this on your own. All right. It is pre-tax, all that. But $490, that can come up to $5,884 per year you're paying for health insurance. You're like, $6,000 just for me. And if you have a family, like a family of four, it can be $16,000. You're like, what? This is ridiculous. Like, it would probably be cheaper just to not have health insurance. So on the other side here, I went and found one that was actually an actual bill from a hospital. This is from somebody that got in a car accident. Pretty serious car accident. They were in the hospital. Had to stay in the hospital for a while, had to do some physical therapy, got back on their feet. The bill from the hospital to this person was $292,643.73. Absolutely insane. That is what the hospital charged these people. And then you can see the discounts down here. Anyway, that gets into splitting hairs. But $292,000, all right? They deduct it because they know they didn't have insurance. Anyway, if you have $292,000 you're sitting in your bank account in case something bad happens to you, cool, you don't need health insurance. they'll come after you. This doesn't go away. This will ruin everything that you have planned pretty much for your whole life. Medical bills are absolutely catastrophic. That is why health insurance is so high, because they have to pay these bills. Without health insurance, it will be absolutely catastrophic. So, health insurance is something you cannot ignore. So the question is, how can health insurance be obtained, and what is the benefits of health insurance? It can be obtained through your employer. All right. So if you work a full-time job, a lot of times they will offer that as a benefit to working there full-time. You can also go and pay it yourself. That was showing you the out-of-pocket cost there, about $490 a month. You can get it yourself. You can get it through your employer. The benefits of health insurance is it prevents you from losing all your options. If you're like, well, I don't have any money now. How are they going to get it? You might have money in the future, but if you don't pay the hospital bill, you have to start paying interest on it. And it will ruin you for your entire life with medical bills. Health insurance, while wildly expensive, is a necessity up front. So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. All right, disability insurance. So disability insurance has a lot of variables here with it, but is also necessary. It's kind of the difference in life insurance and health insurance. So disability insurance, all right, say you get hurt. Say you're a brick mason and you break your leg. All right, it's awful. Or you tear up your knee or something and you're out for 6 months. So if you can't work, how do you get money? Disability insurance will hop in and do that if you're paying premiums on disability insurance. Usually disability insurance pays 40 to 60% or 40 to 70%, depending on the type of disability insurance that you have, of your typical salary. This allows you to pay your bills, survive while you're getting back on your feet. There are two main types of disability insurance that you can have. Short-term disability, which means a few weeks to a year. And I'll tell you the most common time short-term disability is taken out is a lot of times women, if they're working and they think that they might become pregnant over the next year or so, they will take out short-term disability insurance so that when they become pregnant, they can continue to be paid when they have to take off work over maternity leave and things like that. Long-term disability is usually if you're older or you have injury issues and you have to, it can be up to 5 years. Usually those are long-term disability. They'll pay you 50 to 70% of your base salary, but you have to wait 90 days after you're injured to start collecting on that. But the whole point of disability insurance is the fact that if you get injured and can't work, they will pay you basically enough to cover your basic bills to get back on your feet so you don't get in some cataclysmic debt and not be able to get back on your feet. So it's a little bridge as you're getting healthy again. So you're like, you know what, I just won't get hurt. So do you need disability insurance? Well, it's up to you, but 1 in 4 people in the United States end up becoming disabled for a certain amount of time and unable to work in their career. Again, get in a car accident. For me, I threw my back out. I've never been injury prone in my life, and I tore up my back not doing anything. Ruptured a disc. I was out for 6 months, could hardly walk, had to have multiple surgeries for a blown disc. They couldn't find it. It just happened to be during virtual, and I could sit and teach. But if it wasn't for that, I would have had to use disability insurance as well. And I am, so I thought, an extremely healthy person with no pre-existing conditions, no reason to ever think that. And I too would probably be part of this statistic if it wasn't a situation where I could sit down and teach for that year that this happened of all times. So the question here is, what does disability insurance typically provide? So they're specifically talking about a percentage of your pay. So if you have a really high paying job, you get 50 to 70% of that, depending on whatever your policy is. So it's a percentage of your base pay is how they decide how much they're going to pay out. So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. So the next type of insurance that you probably have never thought about, or may not have even heard about, and this is one that you can probably hold off on a little bit, but it is really important to talk about. So it's long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance. So long-term care insurance is really designed for if you need to go to a retirement home later in life, that this will pay the cost of that. So let's talk about the cost. And you're like, what? Why are we even talking about this? Because if you've built up this huge nest egg, all right, and I know right now you're like, I'm still struggling over how expensive health insurance is and how am I going to do that? Life ain't easy, but you work hard at it. And as you get older, when you get in the late stages of life, a lot of times, if you've been smart with your money, you're financially stable. And you're like, hey, I got grandkids, great-grandkids, these other organizations I'd like to donate my life savings to because you have extra money then. If you don't have long-term care insurance and you need some type of long-term care in your retirement age, that can zap all your money very quickly. So let's talk about some of the costs of this. If you're 60 years old, all right, your premium, all right, say you're married, you're both 60 years old, you pay $3,400 per year. It's like $300 a month, which again, that's not cheap, but let's talk about the cost of what long-term care is compared to $3,400 a year. So let's like 5-day-a-week care, just have somebody come into the house to check on you if you're getting older, $18,000 a year. Let's go all the way down to the bottom right corner. Nursing home in a private room, $97,000 per year. To live in a retirement home, it's $100,000 a year. If you don't have the money to pay for that, this Medicare, Medicaid can kick in there. But what the first thing that'll happen is anything you've acquired throughout your life immediately goes to those costs if you don't have insurance for it. So long-term care insurance is necessary in order to be able to pass on your stuff in an inheritance to your family. So while you yourself, you're like, at 60, that's like, I'll never be 60. You will eventually at some point. And I know it's hard to imagine that now. But on a more realistic note, think about your parents. How long until they turn 60, 65? It's then that they need to probably start thinking about getting this long-term care insurance, purely because if they have any type of inheritance they're wanting to pass on and they don't have long-term care insurance, as soon as they go to a retirement home, anything that they were hoping to provide is probably going to get used up in a retirement home type situation, or even somebody coming into the house multiple times a week to check on them. That is still extremely expensive. So the question here is, what is long-term care insurance? So explain what that is and how it works, and pause me. And we're moving on. All right, estate planning. This is something that you probably thought about, and then you're like, I'm sure I'll do that sometime. What ends up happening is a lot of people, as they go through their life, they're like, I'm sure I will do that later, all right? This is really important to do as soon as you get your footing in anything, all right? So you're 18, 19, this might not really be that big of a necessity, but you buy a house, you get married, you have kids, this becomes extremely important for a variety of reasons. So let's walk through what estate planning is. Probably the biggest part of estate planning is having a last will and testament. All right. So this isn't so much insurance. This isn't stuff that you have to pay premiums and things for, but it is really debt management, planning your life. This helps you kind of figure out like what you want to do at the end of your life. So your last will and testament, this is going to divide up your assets among whoever you want to have it. And you've all seen movies like, that crazy ex-brother of mine, whatever, So last will, you're just dividing up your stuff to everybody else. That is straightforward with estate planning. All right. So the last will and testament, giving away your stuff, giving out last information. You're probably familiar with that. Let's talk about some of the other stuff with estate planning that is extremely important that you might not have ever thought about. There's something called the power of attorney. The power of attorney gives somebody else all the ability to make the decisions for you that you would typically make for you. You got to trust this person literally with your life. All right. So, say you get incapacitated, dementia, Alzheimer's later in life. You want to have power of attorney assigned to somebody. Say you get in a bad car accident, you're brain dead. Who makes these decisions? I know I'm going really dark here, but these are things that happen. Your power of attorney is basically signaling one person that makes all these super important decisions over what we're going to do, whether you continue to live or not. Like if it's their choice, like who makes that decision? Like, do we want to keep trying? Do we want to go ahead and end the life now or see if they come out of this? Like who makes that decision? Whoever you've given power of attorney to. So you literally have to trust them with your life. That is a big part of estate planning, because if you don't assign the power of attorney to anybody, the government makes those decisions. Most likely somebody in your life cares more about you than the government. Not that the government doesn't care. Hopefully you have somebody in your life that cares more than the government for your best interest. Another part of estate planning, say you have kids, all right? And you hear this all the time, like, oh, this is my goddaughter, my godparents. What are godparents? Godparents it's a real conversation you have to have with somebody. And they have, I was looking at all these cute little like cards, like, leave me my godparents. This is a very, very serious conversation you have to have with somebody else. So if you have kids, all right, we'll simplify here. Say you're married, you have kids. What happens if something happens to you and your spouse and you both die? Something crazy happens, right? Car accident, something like that. What happens with your children? Well, this is where godparents come in. You have to kind of plan for this. If that happened, who do they go live with? Who raises your kids if something happens to you? And then whoever agrees to that, they are the godparents. Which means if something happens to the parents, those children get raised by somebody else. All right? A lot of times, you got to know who the godparents are, because in the will, a lot of times your finances are going to go to whoever is going to be raising those children. Because it's very expensive to raise kids. Other things that exist here in the estate planning is advanced health care directive. Meaning, say you get in a bad car accident and you're brain dead. How long do you want to be put on a respirator? Your body might just live forever and drain all your resources, all right? Or they could let you go ahead and pass away peacefully. Because once you're brain dead, there's 0% chance of coming out of that. Your consciousness is never returning. You will never wake up. Advanced Healthcare Directive is basically thinking about those scenarios. And it's dark, but you really have to say, all right, if I am officially brain dead, and like 5 different doctors have come in and said his brain is no longer active and it is dead, but what do we do now? And you make that decision, like, no, don't you dare unhook me. You just keep on pumping away on that machine. Or be like, go ahead and unhook me, save as much money as possible because I'm not coming back, give my organs to anybody that needs it, and then move on at that point. That's advanced healthcare directives. Having that written down basically lets the doctors know how you want to proceed. Because if you don't have this, once again, the government makes these decisions, all right? So advanced healthcare directive is also like giving your power of attorney the understanding of these types of situations. Also do not resuscitate these types of directives. These are all things that are in estate planning. One of the more important things in estate planning, all right? What do you want to do when you die? Do you want to be buried? You want to be cremated? Like, do you have some unique third option, like fed to the animals at the zoo? Which I would be cool with. Anyway, so I say that jokingly, but this is a serious thing. You got to figure out what you want to do. Do you want to be buried? You want to be cremated? And these are decisions you have to make, because there's a very different cost associated with each one of these. A traditional burial and buying a burial plot is thousands and thousands of dollars. Caskets are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So cremation is a lot less expensive than being buried. So do you want to use your money to be buried, or do you want to be able to pass that money on to kids and grandkids and be cremated instead? These are variables you have to come up with your estate plan, and it's a pivotal part of managing debt and your finances and your budget as you move on. So, question here, what are the benefits of estate planning? In large part, when you organize it like this, the most amount of money possible goes to your kids. A lot of times you can find tax breaks and things, having a plan in advance. Without having estate planning, the government's going to make a lot of decisions for you, and the government's usually number one goal is, if they have the money, let's have them spend it to help them, because the government gets the tax money from that. So, answer that completely. That's as much as I got for you guys today. See y'all tomorrow.